we can just go. Okay, again, Dr. Weber, thank you for joining us. I know that you're on a tight schedule, and Raymond actually said it got tighter. So I'm gonna just do a quick, actually, I'm gonna have you introduce yourself. I'm just gonna say that some of the things that I know, because Dr. Weber is actually gonna be my new assembly person starting on December 5th. With the redistricting. But one of the things that's always super impressed me is that all of the years she's served as a medical doctor with Rady's Children's Hospital, and I believe it's with UCSD.
Yes, I was with UCSD.
She also has been a volunteer in our community with, and again, correct the exact verbiage, but with the Links program, which you can talk about, and with a number of other organizations really encouraging youth to take a step forward and to get the confidence that they can do more. And I've always loved and appreciated that. So I'm gonna ask Dr. Weber actually to introduce herself with more, than that, than just being the new assembly person, or fairly new, for the 79 Assembly District.
Michelle, before we do that, we need to approve the minutes.
Why do we need to do that first?
No, we've changed the agenda so that we're starting with Dr. Weber first, and we'll vote on meeting minutes after.
Thank you.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, Michelle, for that introduction. And thank you so much for inviting me to speak with you all today. As was stated, my name is Dr. Keila Weber. I am the Assembly member for the 79th Assembly District, was elected into this position in a special election of April of 2021. I'm a San Diego native, was actually born and raised and went to school in the 79th District. I am a board certified OBGYN. I am fellowship trained in pediatric and adolescent gynecology. I founded the pediatric and adolescent gynecology division at Rady Children when I returned to San Diego. As Michelle was alluding to, I grew up understanding the importance of giving back and making sure that we keep doors open for those who come in behind me, because that's why I was able to get to where I am. And so I have done that usually in the areas of STEM, trying to increase representation from minorities in terms of females and also ethnic minorities. And so I am the science coordinator for a local STEM program here called Links to STEM. But wherever I live throughout the country, I usually work with our youth, usually in the STEM related areas. I really appreciate you all taking time to engage in a dialogue about the bill that I had, AB 2343, Saving Lives in Custody Act. Those of us here in San Diego County are very well aware of the issue that we have within our county jails. It has been something that has been discussed for many, many, many years, and more recently has garnered a lot more attention within our media. And because of that, and because of a lot of the grassroots organization around the issues of the deaths in our jail, I was able to ask the state to do an audit of our jail system. That was one of the first things I did when I was elected in April of 2021. And essentially what that audit showed is that we do have a problem within our jail system. We have a crisis of people dying behind our bars. And unfortunately, when they looked up and down the state, there was not a perfect model for us to say that that's the standard that we should be aspiring to. And so the audit laid out a number of recommendations, some things that only the state legislature can do. And they were very clear about those things and clear about who needed to do what. There were some things that the county needed to do. There are some things that they kind of said maybe the attorney general can do, but there was a slew of things that they specifically stated the California State Legislature had to do. And so that was what AB 2343 was. It had the backing of all of the San Diego County Democratic Coalition, including Senate Pro Tem Tony Atkins as a principal co-author on that bill. And so what we did was we went through and basically did what the audit recommended, including adding 2 members on the BSCC, which is the organization or the group that kind of controls what happens in our jail systems. And right now there are no medical providers on that. Most of them are county probation officers that have some kind of experience within the law enforcement system. And so the recommendation was to actually add 1 medical provider and 1 mental health care provider. And that was the issue that the governor's staff had. They did not want to add a medical provider or a mental health provider, despite the recommendations, despite the fact that, you know, within our county jails, we have an issue with mental health. We have an issue with mental health throughout our state, but we're seeing increased rates of suicides. We're also seeing increased rates of fentanyl overdoses, other medical issues, and you really need people with that expertise who are on that board making those decisions, which is what was elicited from the audit. However, the governor's staff did not want to do that, and so they vetoed the bill. We will be bringing it back as is. The only difference is we will gladly remove one of their probation officers from the board, and if they think that the number is too large, going from, I think, 13 to 15 with the addition of the medical and mental health providers. But we feel very confident. The promoters of the bill, the sponsors of the bill are also very adamant that, you know, we need both of those areas of expertise on the board. And so we will be reintroducing it come January, and hopefully the governor's staff will realize that this is not a bill that needs to be vetoed, not even a first time, but definitely not a second time.
So one of the reasons that, well, Kay, I was going to ask Kay if she was the one who was really following this, works at the Home of Guiding Hands, and I unfortunately didn't really follow it until after the veto. But we are hoping that there would be something connected to also including, and it doesn't have to be an extra person, but just including a disability perspective. And one of the reasons is we've had our own, we're just really starting this process, but we have had conversation with the sheriff's department. We have one coming up with the district attorney's department or office. And it has been very clear to us their lack of information about how to be inclusive, how to be accessible, and to be aware of what is needed related to a variety of different disabilities. Kay, can you?
Yeah, I'm gonna jump in. I think more so than anything, I wanted to lend our assistance because of the variety of disabilities that we all have as appointees on the committee. And mine being chronic substance abuse, and Michelle's being a sight impairment. We have one with a mental disability, and felt that from an advocacy standpoint, we could certainly help facilitate this process for you. And I have to be careful, I don't want to use the word lobby, but advocate in any way that you thought it would be helpful. We have spent the past year interfacing with our local law enforcement and thoroughly investigating what happens with somebody who has a disability, whether they be intoxicated or they have some type of invisible mental health problem. What happens from the point of contact And I have to stop and tell you that my mother was a police officer. And so this is in no way an attack on police or anti-police, but clearly there's a system that is fractured that needs to be repaired. And we're not here to criticize our men and women who work on the front lines, but more so just to help them identify that there's a need in the community that isn't being met. And so we started with the point of contact with the officer, going through that entire process to a potential jail placement, which is a whole nother conversation in itself. And the gentleman who uses a mobility wheelchair device is not on the call right now, but it was very compelling to us that they didn't have the facilities or the education or the experience needed to deal with the populations that we represent, and a myriad of diagnoses. And then that now we're further down in our research and we're looking at the court process. And all of this has been well documented. And so if there's any part of this that you feel would be helpful, I mean, we certainly want to lend our expertise and research work to you.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. And I think that's one of the reasons why it is so critically important to have healthcare professionals on the board, making the recommendations, making the decisions, creating that statewide, baseline standard of care. And, when he vetoed it and I went and I actually read over once again, all of the background on all of the members of the board, I was even more disappointed in that decision, because there's absolutely nobody on that board right now that has any kind of mental health or just medical background. And it's very unfortunate given the amount of medical issues and mental health issues that they have encountered and will continue to encounter within our jail system. Right now they talk about the increase in fentanyl overdoses, and you need people with that kind of background to say, this is what should happen. This is a protocol. This is the basis, the basic things done, which if you're not in that area, you can't really lend that expertise and knowledge. So when Michelle called, I was very excited about this, because everybody needs to make sure that they have a voice at the table. And right now, unfortunately, that voice is void based on the current composition of the board. And so I know Raymond is on, and he is my staff, who is the point person for this particular bill. And, we are in the process of communicating. I do know that the previous sponsors are definitely very interested in reintroducing the bill. And any other kind of support that we can get, we definitely appreciate. And we'll definitely keep in touch and reach out and let you all know if there's anything that we need specifically, or that would help make sure that it gets signed this next time when it hits his desk. And I know all of us on the coalition were shocked, including Senator Atkins, which is one of the reasons why we didn't rally up the troops as much before. This was not one of the bills that I thought he would even consider vetoing. But we know better for this next time. But I'm sorry, Carolyn? No,
that's yes, thank you. Because this is a nonpartisan board and a non-political board, we want to make sure we don't go outside of the scope of what our board is allowed to do. And so we're allowed to take your information about your bill and distill it and send it to the board of supervisors and do it that way. I want to make sure that it's not a Democrat, Republican, those words, because this is a nonpartisan board. We just want to be very careful not to say things that infer we as a whole are supporting a bill or legislation or anything like that, because that is outside the scope of the board.
So actually,
Michelle, let me address that. With all due respect, I'm not even sure what party preference Dr. Weber is affiliated with, nor has it been mentioned at any time during this conversation. But I don't know that it's relevant because the issue that we're discussing, regardless of which party introduces this, is an issue that we absolutely have the authority given under our charter to execute advocacy and awareness. And it's not limited to within San Diego County.
And I don't necessarily disagree. I was saying kind of overarching, because she had mentioned that it was a Democratic bill. And so that's for the overarching piece of that. I'm just putting my 2 cents that we want to be very careful when we lend those words, because it may appear to some to be partisan. That was my only point.
And Raymond, can you help me? Didn't the county support this bill?
Correct. Yes, they were one of our sponsors.
Yeah, so the County of San Diego was one of the sponsors of this bill. So it wasn't a partisan bill, and it was, the County of San Diego doesn't come out and sponsor a whole lot of bills, but they were very much in favor of this bill as well. So if there aren't any other questions, then, Raymond will put his email in the chat so that if anyone has any specific questions, they can always reach out to us via him. And, once we kind of get everything going, then we can, reach out to Michelle, I guess, and she's off the call. So
Yeah,
I don't.
looks like we've lost the chair, but definitely we appreciate you coming and presenting and giving this background. This will be helpful for the committee to ingest and then to determine what actions might be able to be taken, and definitely to look to advise the County Board of Supervisors on some steps. So thank you, Dr. Weber and Raymond as well. We don't have our vice chair here either, so we'll thank you for that. And Kay, did you have any follow-up words from the committee?
No.
Okay.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
You too.
Michelle is joining right back in. I'm not
Okay.
sure if she had any questions. I think we lost them.
Yeah.
Hi, Michelle, can you hear us?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
I apologize. It's Lemon Grove Wi-Fi. We we need better connections. I'm on a portable battery right now. Sorry. So I did hear, the last I heard was actually with Kay talking about the the fact that we are very aware that we are nonpartisan, and we have been very aware, and I've already had conversations with the supervisors. We absolutely should be weighing in. That's what the 3 supervisors I spoke to want us to do, is to give our recommendations, to give our opinions, to give our knowledge base. That's the whole reason we exist. So having said that, I don't know if Dr. Weber is still on.
They did leave.
Okay, they left, including Raymond?
Yes.
Well, and I
They
guess
did say that they would reach back.
we probably have to. I know that we have visited this in the past, Todd and Katie, but we probably need to do a reminder, that our governance does not require a unanimous vote by this committee. If we have 1 or 2 members who are not in favor of pursuing support, but the majority of the members are in fact in favor of it, in no way does that mean that the support should be stopped.
Yeah, that's definitely accurate. Was there some discussion of not moving forward, or
No,
what did I miss?
there hasn't been any discussion of next steps.
And so when they left, how was it left? Just that they would stay in touch and,
They left us Raymond's email address is in the chat. And so any needs that the committee deems that that there is for the assembly person, you'd be able to make any outreach to Raymond Contreras.
okay. He should have left the phone number, given the fact that not everybody does email, but I will speak to Dr. Weber about that. So I guess I would like to hear thoughts. One of the things that I did want to emphasize with Dr. Weber is maybe thinking about what options or ways that we could ensure, or that she could ensure, that in the as she is reintroducing this disability related piece of legislation, that the varying perspectives around the various disabilities are included. And one of the things, might be that be a recommendation that one or both of the new positions that get added, because I don't think that we'll necessarily be able to add a third position specifically around disabilities, and they're so varied, that would be hard anyway, but that we ask that the two positions have some connection, if not experience in the disabled community, or that, an awareness of that. What do other people think? How could we try to make sure that the perspective of the disabled community is included when they are looking at the law review? Because that's what this is about. This is about when people have complaints or grievances related to how the law enforcement entities have responded to.
So it sounds to me, Michelle, what she said, and me based the little knowledge that I have in following the bill, she was requesting, because she's a gynecologist, she was requesting that somebody with a public health background or some type of clinical background be added as one member of this commission. And that I'm actually surprised to hear that her own party, I wasn't even aware. Honestly, I don't know anything about Dr. Weber, except that she's obviously, based on her introduction, she's an extraordinary woman. But just me following this bill, I had assumed that the governor vetoed her bill because there was some type of party dispute. But nonetheless, it sounds to me like the governor disputed the bill.
Let me clarify that right now. Had nothing to do with party.
I know that now. But
Okay.
it sounds like the governor vetoed the bill because she was told, and I heard this on the radio, because there wasn't enough room to add anybody else, which is ridiculous. That the board is entirely comprised of law enforcement professionals, and they didn't want a public health or clinical professional added, and which is why she's going to move forward with the reintroduction. So it sounds to me, I feel that because of the nature of our committee and the composition of our committee and representing as many disabilities as we do, specifically the ones that she named, where there are cracks in the system with mental health and substance abuse, I feel that we could write a letter of support to her or to the governor or to whatever committee is going to eventually end up rehearing this, saying, we are the disability committee, and this is the position that we're taking. We're supporting this because of A, B, C, or D. And that we should, because unless all of these probation officers have clinical backgrounds, she has a really good, valid point. When you're setting policy on intervention, which is what they do, you need to have somebody at the table who has a little bit of experience with that from a medical standpoint. That's how I understood it.
I'm not even sure who's on the call. Katie, could you let me know who's on the call at this point? Obviously, it's Carolyn.
Sure.
Self.
On the committee, there is Sherry, Carolyn, Jessica, Jeanette, Kay, and yourself, and Todd and I are here.
Okay, so other people did join us. Thank you. I don't know if anyone else has anything else to add on that, but one of the other position is on substance abuse. And when I had my conversation inviting her, I did talk about including a more broad disability perspective. And I gave her the example of Jose, who had brought up with the sheriff's department. That was what I would like her to be aware of, is what our experience has been thus far with the sheriff's department as an example, and their lack of knowledge and lack of effort in terms of making sure that people with disabilities were accommodated. The lack of information was basic things like, do you use a Hoya lift? Or the situation with Jose of, just saying, oh yeah, we have lots of people who can transfer people, and not having any idea that, that is totally inappropriate in some situations, such as brittle bone disease. And I did specifically bring that situation up. She knew immediately and, just said, I'd be surprised if they have a Hoya lift. And I said, it doesn't sound like they do. So anyway, I just kind of wanted the committee to be aware of what, had been discussed so far and how we might be able to just add to what she is going to reintroduce in January that would take in more of the disability perspective on a very heavily laden law enforcement committee. And actually we included the links both to the actual bill, AB 2343, which anyone can look up, as well as the links to the committee itself. I hope people had a chance to look at them, because the 13 people are, with one exception, which is a public member, all of them are involved in law enforcement. And it does seem that it needs to be balanced better. So it's a sheriff who is over a jail system of a county that has more than 200,000 people. Another sheriff that is over a county that has less than 200,000 people. A chief of police of a city that has more than 200,000 people and less. So that is the nature of it. And that obviously does not lead to any compassionate perspective or inclusive perspective of how does this affect the disability community.
Just a couple of things that I want to make sure that the committee is aware of, and actually, Michelle, to that point, as far as the makeup, I do see the individuals that are on the committee, and there are 3 individuals that appear to be representing anti-recidivism nonprofit organizations. One of them looks like it may be a government employee potentially, but a couple of them are with the ARC Anti-Recidivism Coalition. But I also want to point out as it relates to the scope and responsibilities of the county boards, commissions, and committees. There is A74 that dictates or guides committees such as the Committee for Persons with Disabilities when it relates to things that are outside of the county board of supervisors or outside of the county of San Diego. There's direction as to what can be done and then how that is to be done. So I want to make sure that the committee is aware of Section 12 of A74, participation in county boards, commissions, and committees. And I'll just bring a little bit of that. So it states that when a county committee wishes to make a recommendation on pending legislation to a legislative body other than the San Diego County Board of Supervisors, the committee shall submit recommendations or positions on legislation to the department head. The department head shall submit the committee recommendations to the Office of Strategy and Intergovernmental Affairs, noting the departmental position relative to the committee recommendations. And then the Office of Strategy and Intergovernmental Affairs shall inform the Board of Supervisors of the committee's recommendation, or the CAO, Chief Administrative Officer, may place the committee and its recommendation on a future Board of Supervisors agenda. And then it goes on to say how the board proceeds. But I really would like to make sure that everyone is aware of, especially in this particular situation, because this is state legislation, so that you're able to ensure that you're operating in accordance with policies and procedures.
Right. So at this point, it is not legislation, which is why this is the time for us to discuss it and to share that information with Dr. Weber before she has created it into legislation.
Well, it's pending legislation.
It's not even pending at this point. No, it's not pending.
Okay, all I am is making sure that the committee is aware of the requirements that we need to operate under.
Michelle, I think Todd is right because it will be reintroduced. And she has made a formal announcement that she intends to reintroduce the bill. It may in fact be considered pending. However, regardless, we have to abide by the procedures, which I don't think is a bad idea, because what we should do is go before the Board of Supervisors and let them know that if this is what the group agrees, that we will be supporting this, and then formally ask for their continued support, because it sounds like they had supported it in the past.
Again, other people have feedback to give.
I'll stop.
I just wanted to make sure, because there is nothing that says that, I mean, Nathan Fletcher is the one who has appointed me, and he calls me and asks me what is going on the committee. And there's nothing that stops people from talking to the Board of Supervisors directly and letting them know that this is coming up. But I have no problem doing it within the departments at the same time as letting them be aware that this is something that we're looking at. And the only reason I said that it isn't pending at this point is because pending generally means when they have actually, said that they are looking at this legislation, which does not happen until January. That's all.
Thank
Are
you.
there other comments from other committee members related to the actual substance of the past bill, or what we would, maybe ways that we might be able to weigh in with a disability perspective included?
Hey, this is Sherry. I have a comment. I would like to do more research on the bill because what it's saying, I certainly believe in it. But sometimes a bill also hides other agendas. And so I just want to do some research and make sure that there's no other agendas being hidden and that it's just as straightforward as discussed today.
So that is why I don't know if you received it previously, but that is why when I had it sent out, I think the last 2 meetings, we included both the bill and the links to the committee. Did you receive that, Sherry?
I wasn't at the last meeting, so I'll have to go back and check in my emails and do some research. Yeah.
Okay, because that, we have been trying to be transparent about it, and that is why it was included in the last 2 emails. Katie has included it so people had the chance to check it out before the meeting. But yeah, I mean, it's always a good idea for people to do more research and bring it back.
Thank you.
Anyone else? So maybe I really am looking for ways that we can include the disability perspective with how it is being anticipated right now. I mean, if there's ways that people can think of, please call me, let me know. In the meantime, maybe we can create a smaller subcommittee to draft a letter to, what was the first department, Todd, that?
To the Office of Ethics and Compliance, I suppose, or it, and then we can send that to, we could have it go to Michael Vu.
Okay. And then from there, it can go on. That's fine.
Michelle, Jessica has her hand up. I think she has a question.
Jessica, you don't have to raise your hand. Small enough group, just come on and speak. I can't see whose hands are raised.
Okay, thank you. I just want to say how important I think that this particular work is. And this day and age, the lived experience voice is considered essential to so many of these policy decisions. And I appreciate that we're advocating for that. I feel that as a group, we do have a lot of diversity and different disabilities, and we have a lot to offer. I actually did a class yesterday, a training where I got certified in first responder disability advocacy, and the solutions and ways to accommodate, and just the understanding of the complexities of a disability response are so important to the safety of the disability community. And I learned so much in the training, which was only 2 hours. So I hope that, we can continue to bring our voice to the table and also be advocating just for the lived experience voice in general. Thank you.
Jessica, would you mind sharing that the entity that conducted that training?
Yeah.
we are looking at a variety of different opportunities for employee training.
Oh, that's great. I think they would be a great choice. They're Niagara University and have some funding from the Developmental Disability Council, and they're pretty large in Missouri and Kansas, but also New York and several other states. And from what I saw, they have a very thorough series of trainings. It was very real world experience based, very professional. And one of the things I learned about the way that they've been so successful is by really also using the lived experience voice of first responders and local and government organizations as they've built their training. So they're doing the reciprocal version of lived experience inclusion, and I found it to be a really powerful, easy to understand training. So I will definitely share that.
Thank you.
So I do think that the lived experience is a good thing to for sure include. And who knows, we could always like word it as, you know, it would be great if we were able to get an additional person on that focused on that. But if not, that perhaps it could be part of the experience, you know, hoped for or recommended for the medical people being considered.
Yeah, there are so many ways to include the lived experience voice. It is helpful to always have, someone from the community you're making decisions about at the table, but also just bringing the voice just to the various people in the various meetings. There are so many different ways that can be done. So I agree with you on that, Michelle.
So I think at this point on this topic, we can maybe see if, again, if people have other thoughts, please call me. But we'll maybe have a separate, subcommittee meeting to write, to start a draft. And of course, that'll come back to the committee before it's sent anywhere. But if people are interested in helping with that, you can let me know now or let me know, after the meeting. I'm assuming Kay is interested, and I know I am interested. Is anyone else at this point? No.
I'm interested, Jessica.
Jessica. And okay, so at this point, we'll make that the subcommittee. And again, it'll definitely come back. Anything we do on a subcommittee will always come back to the full committee.
Michelle, on that topic, maybe at the end of the meeting, but could we figure out a date while we're all together so we can get that scheduled with the holidays coming up?
Sure.
We can do that at the end.
Thank you, Katie. Always keeping us on task. I very much appreciate it. What is the next? So we should go back at this point. I really expected Raymond to stay on for the discussion, but we should go and ask for non-agenda public comment, because I believe that was the first official, initially the first item.
The first item would be voting to approve October meeting minutes and then non-agenda comment.
Okay. Are there any questions about the minutes as sent out? Is there any objection to approving the October minutes?
No,
Okay. So
Jeanette.
I'll ask it a second time. Any objections to approving the October minutes? then we will consider them approved by acclamation. And are there any non-agenda comments, whether it's from the committee or any guests? Okay. Are there any guests that are not part of the committee on the meeting at this time?
No, there are not.
Okay. Just so they don't get left out. Thank you. And what is the next item?
It is our standing item of 2022 committee objectives.
Um,
I have those. Do you want me to read them?
Sure. And then, of course, we are also planning for the December meeting to have, to be focused on that. Sure, if you read them, that would be great.
Objective number 1 is Health and Human Services, specifically the contract that they give to 211, and if the information is kept current. We haven't talked to them yet. Number 2 is Public Safety. Number 3 was accessibility for register of voters. Number 4 was Special Education Services, and 5 was Disabled Veteran Services.
Thank you for that reminder. Are there any specific comments on those? Because yes, we do need to schedule that 2-in-1, but that's going to be in the new year.
I'd like to talk about something.
Okay.
Okay. So I am on an organization called Lived Experience Advisors. Michelle, you know John Brady. We've talked about him before, but essentially it's a lived experience network of people that have experienced homelessness. And, you know, I tend to be the disability rights point person for the group because that's my specialty and my passion and purpose. And it's been interesting to watch the group really stand behind the concept of disability rights. We do something similar where we have a lot of meetings with various representatives from the county and city government, and you know, they give a presentation, and then we tend to give feedback, you know, from a diverse perspective of homelessness, not just disability, but then there's always a carved time for the disability aspect. And one of the things that's become very clear is just a lack of pathway and policy with the Americans with Disabilities Act reasonable modifications. And this is really come forth with the county. We had the head of Health and Human Services and also Barbara Jimenez from the new County Office of Homeless Solutions and Equitable Communities on one of our meetings. And a number of us talked about the disability inaccessibility of accessing services. And their response was really genuine surprise, because they feel like ADA compliance is something that's kind of drilled into the county positions, and he just felt like legal aid and fair housing and Shachia handle any complaints of lack of ADA compliance. But afterwards, we kind of broke off into conversations, and like I'll give an instance with in-home support services. If somebody needed to sign up for in-home support services, it's the physician will make the referral, but the physician doesn't take that person through the process of applying for and following through and meeting with the caseworker from the county. Independently. And if that person, you know, at the application level said, I need an Americans with Disabilities Act reasonable modification, the person on the line wouldn't know what that is. There's no formalized ADA reasonable modification form. There's no, there's not a lot of knowledge about how to accommodate and it seems to be an issue all throughout various county services. And I wonder if, because I know we've had in-home support on, we've had health and human, we've had aging and independent, but we really haven't had the time to go back and offer them various potential accommodations or help them improve their policies and practices. And I wonder if we can't start looping around with some of these organizations and see if we can't use our diverse experiences to help them create policies and pathways that show the community what an ADA reasonable modification is and how to get one every step of the way from beginning to end and through maintaining services. Sorry that was long-winded, but hopefully you guys understand what I'm saying.
Jessica, this is Todd Hood.
Hi, Todd.
Thank you for that, because that is one of the things that we have uncovered in our the survey that we conducted back a couple months ago. And one of the recommendations is to, well, a couple recommendations tie into what you highlighted. One of those is an evaluation or an assessment of the support staff for people with disabilities and accessibility across the county. We currently have departmental ADA Title II coordinators that are embedded in each of the departments. Those individuals, as part of they are not full-time employees that's not their full-time role, but they are HR leaders. And those employees are responsible for cascading out training and awareness concepts. One of the things that has come from our office. So one of the things that I mentioned earlier before many folks got onto the call, that I would interact with Michael Vu. I have a meeting with him after today's call to cover off on the structure of support staff. So I think I know I presented to the committee in previous meetings that we'd be looking at evaluating the structure of the support staff or the staff model, if you will, for people with disabilities, including my and Katie's role, as well as it relates to the Committee for Persons with Disabilities, as well as those departmental ADA Title II coordinators. So what you are highlighting is good information and support for me as I speak with leadership about some of the activities that need to be happening and some of the employee awareness that needs to occur as it relates to when someone presents with a service animal, when someone presents with a request for a reasonable modification, etc. When they present with a request for effective communication. And so those are going to be items that we're going to be looking for, considering as we look at the staffing model, whether it makes sense for departmental ADA Title II coordinators to be responsible for training client-facing employees, or if it makes sense for that to be in another area, what type of training needs to occur, as well as what type of resources need to be in certain departments. including assistive technologies, et cetera. So thank you for bringing that forward. It is on our radar now. And so the plan is to put some resources toward what you've experienced.
Todd, this is Michelle, how many ADA coordinators are there in the county?
So at the departmental level, we've got about 25 in each department. They are HR leaders. So in addition to client services, they also are responsible for employee accessibility.
I just want to add in there that if you really look at us creating a pathway by which every person with a disability can ask for a reasonable modification every step of the way in accessing a county program or service, that role just seems like it would not be sufficient enough, because when somebody puts a reasonable modification through, there needs to be somebody very knowledgeable in ADA coordination and modification to be able to even know whether it's a reasonable modification or not. I mean, reasonable is the key word in that legislature, and it takes someone with a certain skill set to be able to make those determinations.
Most definitely.
Todd, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know why I'm right next to the modem. It's frustrating.
Oh, you cut out after, Jessica, you cut out after you mentioned it takes someone with a special skill set.
Yeah, it does. And, I know when I've asked, so when you say we have about 25 ADA coordinators, are you referring to the quote unquote civil rights coordinator positions?
That's one person.
Okay. So so they're called various things throughout the county?
No. That happens to just be someone. The civil rights coordinator does certain things that's not one of the ADA Title II coordinators. These are individuals that are in the departments.
Okay, and
Jessica, I believe that they are added duties to people's normal jobs in the different departments.
So how reasonable is it to be advocating for ADA coordinators, like the kind that work in risk management for cities? I mean, Todd, I don't know how different your position is than, say, an ADA coordinator for a city that works in risk management. Would that be a similar background and similar training, or what's the standard for an ADA coordinator?
There is no standard.
That's what I was trying to explain to you. It's added duties to their normal job duties, but apparently they're trying to make sure that there's somebody in as many departments as possible that actually would funnel any concerns or complaints.
Well, I'm not sure if you guys can see by my thoughts and questions that if we were going to really integrate a pathway that was accessible to everyone for every program and service, there would need to be some type of position with a certain standardized skill set that would be able to receive those accommodation requests and make not only the determination of reasonableness, but also the actual steps it would take to make the modification or the accommodation.
Jessica, I am going to be meeting with Michael Vu this afternoon to discuss this particular topic. So then I will speak to him about your insight and input, and we may be contacting you for more detail around your recommendations.
Thank you, Todd.
So it sounds like, I don't know that this was actually, a topic within our, was it 5 areas, Kay, that you read?
Yes, the 5 areas.
Does this fit into one? Because otherwise, maybe it is something we should actually add.
It does not. However, we have our planning meeting next month, and the purpose for that is to review these priorities and see if they still are priorities.
Yeah, okay, that's true. So, Katie, can you make a note that this particular topic, just to make sure that we bring that up as a topic of concern, and how we want to incorporate it, how it would be incorporated.
Yes, I'll make note of it for the next meeting for the planning session.
Thank you. If there are no other comments related to that agenda item, what is our next one?
Well, the agenda item that we were on was committee objectives.
Right, I understand. So that's why I said, if there are no other comments about the committee objectives, what is our next agenda item? Because again, we're going to be having a full meeting related to our prioritization.
The next agenda item is the authorization of teleconferencing for the next December meeting.
Oh,
That's our final topic.
those are the easy ones. What, okay, are there any, before we get to that, are there any catch-all topics that we want to make sure we at least put some light on at our December meeting that we want to look at in terms of committee objectives / prioritization? Are there any specific things that people want to, not forget? Again, they can certainly be brought up next month, or in the interim, but I just want to open that for right now while we have Katie scribing for us. Okay, if there are none, then we will bring them all up next month. So can I hear a motion to approve continuing the teleconferencing? And Katie, can you give us the actual numbers?
Yes, to extend government code 54953E.
I move.
I second. This is Carolyn.
Okay. Does anyone object to moving forward with authorizing this? I'm very grateful for it, actually. I'll ask the second time. Is there anyone that has any objections? Then we will consider it approved by acclamation.
Before we adjourn the meeting, for those who are interested, can we set the date for the subcommittee meeting?
Sure. I wasn't forgetting that, I promise. Is there anything else on the, is there anything else that anyone needs to bring up for the committee? And then, yeah, if we can set a date, Jessica, Kay, myself, what, I think Kay is the one with a,
Be out of town until November 18th. I hate to do this, but can we do it the week of Thanksgiving, maybe that Monday or Tuesday?
The 18th is a Sunday.
Let me look here. No, the 18th is a Friday. So if we could do it on the 21st, I'm free all day. And on the 23rd, I'm free in the morning, but I'm open all day on the 21st.
Do
If that
you,
works for you.
when do you leave town?
I'm leaving, well, I do have time next week. I'm leaving on the 10th.
Okay, Jessica, what does your schedule look like?
I can accommodate what those dates.
I'm kind of thinking that it would be better if we can at least start the conversation next week.
How about the morning of the 10th?
What day of the week is the 10th?
It's a Thursday.
I think I can. Jessica, what is your schedule like? I think I can do that the second Thursday of the month.
Yeah, what time did you say?
She didn't say.
You know,
Okay.
the earlier the better. 8 or 9 o'clock would be great.
What time did you say, Kate?
Either 8 or 9.
I think
Okay, nine's okay for me.
Okay,
I
let's
was
do
gonna
9
say,
o'clock
yes.
then.
Okay. 9 o'clock. Just trying to make sure it should work for me. If not, I'll check back with you guys, but I think 9 o'clock. Katie, do you want to do this on Zoom? Can you do this on Zoom or
Yeah,
can?
I'll set up a Zoom meeting and send out the link to the whole committee in case anybody decides to add on for Thursday, the 10th at 9 a.m. Should I set it for 1 hour? Is that sufficient or do you want more time?
Let's do it for an hour and a half. And if we don't use it, we don't use it.
Okay, no problem.
It gives us a little cushion. I'm just thinking that starting that, we might want to get more information. That's the reason that and then we can plan a meeting for the week of Thanksgiving, which I'm available for. I don't know. Again, Jessica said she has availability. So, okay. So I think that's takes care of the last pending issue. If there is nothing else, we'll conclude this meeting, and then our next meeting date is, what is the second Friday of, the 11th? No, it's not
It'll be Friday, December 9th.
December 9th.
I think Sherry wanted to be on that call too. This is for the assembly bill, right? Is that special meeting?
The special
Yeah.
meeting on November 10th.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think Sherry wanted to be on that as well. Oh, but she's not on the call. Okay, got it.
Did she didn't say so when I asked.
Well, I think she said something about she wanted to research more about the bill or something.
Right. Okay, well, she'll get it like everyone else will.
Yeah.
But that's why I was very specific and said, we're gonna set up a subcommittee to do the work on a draft, and it'll come back before the larger committee.
So I'll have that as a agenda topic in December as well to,
Yes.
forgive me, is that a voting item that I should list? If the committee votes to approve the letter and send it to the Board of Supervisors?
Yeah, let's put it down as an action item.
Okay.
And again, if we choose to table it, then it leaves that as an option. Thank you, Katie.
Not a problem.
Thank you, Todd. And
Thank you.
So Kay and Jessica and Katie, I'll see you next week. And Oh, I did not remind everybody about voting.
And Carolyn and Jeanette are still on.
I voted.
I'm glad. I'm just reminding everybody to vote before 8 p.m. on Tuesday, November 8th. So, and take care and stay safe.
Have a good.
Bye,
Thank,
everyone.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
thank you.